Hello and welcome everyone to the Beacon of Light podcast this evening. Tonight we are really excited to have Shane Svorec, and she has an incredible, wonderful book, again, a children's book, because we are celebrating the month of April as Childhood Sexual Abuse Awareness Month, because we want to empower the parents, the kids in their lives to know how they can make a difference, how they can find hope, how they can really strengthen each other's connections and relationships, and to also answer the question, can a children's book really, change your day? Can it change your life? What changes can children's books bring to everyone? So again, we have Miss Shane Svorec, and we are so excited. But before we start talking to her, we're going to jump into this.
I'm April Tribe-Juke. Welcome to the Beacon of Light podcast. I believe we are all made with light, and light is hope. This podcast brings authors who write stories of hope to all of you. Your journey to be inspired and amplified by these stories starts now.
And we are back. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Shane. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you've been on the program a few times, and we just want to really amplify your light tonight.
Well, thank you, April. I always love chatting with you, and thank you for having me on your show. I love your show. I love what you do, and I love the light that you share. So I'm honored to be part of it. My name is Shane Svorec. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I visit a lot of schools. I do positive programs. My first book, Broken Little Believer, was a #1 new release, and it's won a few awards. I'm very proud of that book. And then the second book, which we're going to talk about tonight, is a children's book, but it's a book that was written for people of all ages, really. It's a heartwarming story about a bridge that I pay tribute to, and it has a lot of lessons that are woven throughout it that are very relevant and time sensitive. So I felt like it was a perfect way for me to tie in my thoughts and to give homage, I guess, to the history of the bridge, but also to bring some light to some needed reminders for today.
Wonderful. And what are some of those needed reminders of today?
Well, I think, as we get older, we just get busier and busier, and we tend to have our to-do list. We're busy with work. We're busy with our families. We're busy with so many things that even, sometimes a drive from here to there, we kind of zone out, and we're so lost in thought and lost in, what our next task is, that we forget to pause and to breathe and to take notice of the world around us, to take notice of the people who are around us. So within the book, I write the story through the lens of a little girl, and through that curiosity and imagination and just that innocence of a child that notices the little things that as we get older, we seem to forget.
Right. And in that forgetfulness, we miss a few things. And it is so incredible how children can focus us back into the small things that really give us that stop and aha moment. Mm-hmm. And it's really, it's a fun moment to live within the moment that a child can see. So the name of this book, I have it posted right there, and you can see running underneath us, the ticker underneath, all of the information for Shane and how to connect with her. And this is really an incredible little book that there is something that really allows a connection quite physically, right, from one side to another. And that is what a bridge is. So share with us your connection to this particular bridge.
So the Tappan Zee Bridge, which was the name of the original bridge, was the backdrop of a lot of my young experiences as a child. When I was little, there were, I grew up in a very unconventional way, and life at home was interesting, to say the least. So I was very curious, and I spent a lot of my time alone, just observing the world, and I found myself very early on kind of looking for smiles. This particular bridge, the way that it was constructed, I saw a natural smile in this bridge. And so once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. So throughout my childhood, I was always looking at the bridge. And whenever I looked at it, I would smile because I imagined that the bridge was smiling at me. So whether I was sitting on the shore or whether I was in the back seat of a car driving across it, I started with my own, imagination, just not only admiring the bridge, but starting to think about what the bridge meant, what it represented, how it helped people, how it carried people, how it literally bridged two pieces of land and presented opportunities and opened doors for so many people. So the bridge kind of became like a friend to me. And so throughout my childhood, as I grew up and then I moved away, and when I moved back to the area, I was met by this familiar smile. And but it was more than just that. I noticed that no matter when I looked at the bridge, whether it was in the morning before I went to school or during the day, and actually my middle school sat atop a hill. And from my window at the classroom, I could see the bridge. And then after school, I would go to a park and I could see the bridge. So I always had visibility of the bridge. And as a young person, I noticed that no matter what time of day and no matter what day of the year I looked at the bridge, there was always traffic on the bridge. Always. There was never a time when I looked at the bridge and it was completely empty. And so through the innocence and the imagination of my young mind, I started to wonder and have almost empathy for the bridge and wondered, when does the bridge get a break? The bridge carries so much and carries so many people and keeps us all safe. When does the bridge get a break? So there were a lot of things that I was thinking about when I was young. And as I traveled on the bridge and as I started to just really, it was just such a fond view for me. I also noticed that the bridge had signs on it. And when I was younger, I just thought that not only was the bridge smiling at me, but I thought the bridge is a positive bridge too, because I would see signs like, when there's no hope, there's help. Or smile, it would say, life is worth living. And I thought, wow, this bridge is even like a positive bridge. No wonder it's smiling. That was the innocence of the child. As I got older, I then understood why those signs were there. I understood why there were phones on the bridge. And so then my story that I had as a child kind of evolved. And I started to appreciate and better recognize the weight of the people that traveled on the bridge. So I started to draw a parallel between the bridge that carries so much weight and the people who are on the bridge that also carry a lot of weight, and that we don't necessarily notice things in our day-to-day life until there's a break. A lot of people didn't pay attention to the bridge. They just traveled on it back and forth, and they really paid no mind to it until it started getting old and dingy and rusty and looking worn. And I started to realize that the same is true about people. We don't notice people unless they start to break down, if something goes wrong. And so what was a heartwarming friend to me in my imagination, this bridge, became a bigger story, and it became more important to me for a lot of other reasons. So
wonderfully said. That weight of the people going back and forth, that's something that is really, I think it's a powerful moment of realization. Mm-hmm. And thinking about the positive pieces and signs upon the bridge. I too live in a place where our community would be cut off completely without this bridge. We live in a city called Twin Falls. And so we have this huge chasm over 500 feet deep we've got the river at the bottom and this big just lava canyon. And without our Perrine Bridge, we're stuck.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine without that what would happen, or what, the change, the travel time to go around all of these. It's just, it can't happen. And so the connection from land to land, the gap and the chasm really isn't that far, but it really makes a difference. It allows my children to attend their school over that bridge. It allows my children to have access to sign language because of that bridge. That bridge allows us to bring commerce back and forth, right? And beauty. There's ways and pathways for people to walk on it and to see and gaze on the view. It's just incredible. And so I love how you saw a smile in the bridge. That's just so fun. That's just exactly. I'm sure so many of us are probably relating to either landmarks or something within nature that they can say, oh, I have something similar within my life. So if you were to take a child, and let's just pretend that you have grandkids in the future, and you want to take them to that park. I know the Tappan Zee Bridge is no more, so I don't want to spoil it for everybody. But if it was still there, what would you point out to your own grandkids?
Well, I would point out, looking at the bridge. First of all, it was just beautiful. It was a beautiful, beautiful bridge, and actually, its claim to fame. One of the claim to fame points was that it's the longest bridge in the state of New York. So it's over 3 miles long. So it was not only beautiful to me, but it was huge. It was huge, and it was a stunning view because it went across the Hudson River, and the Hudson River is a very historic town. It connects part of Rockland County and the state of New York across, and it connects over by Sleepy Hollow in a very historic region. So if I were pointing out the bridge and showing them the bridge, I would point out, look at all the vehicles on the bridge. What kinds of vehicles do you see? Do you see cars, trucks, bikes, buses? I would point all of them out. And I'd ask them, try counting to see how many vehicles are on the bridge. And do you see a break in the vehicles? Do you see a break in the traffic, or is it pretty constant? And then I would ask them if they saw the smile. Can you see it? And 9 times out of 10, people, they see it. They may not see it until I show it to them, but then they can't unsee it. But most importantly, I would say, beyond the bridge, looking at the people. They couldn't see the people from where we would be at the park, but I would bring it to their attention that the bridge carries a lot of people. It carries young and old, and it doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter where you're from, your background, your walk of life, what you do for a living. The bridge is indiscriminate in who it carries. And what a beautiful thing that is. So I would talk a lot about how we depend on things. We depend on people. And sometimes we don't realize how much we depend. You were just describing the bridge near you and all that you are able to attend, and the things that you're able to do and your children are able to do because of that bridge. And I think that I would weave into my my story and showing them the bridge, I would weave into that the fact that sometimes we lean and we depend so much on things that we use every day. And we lean on the people, and we depend on people that we see every day, or people in our family or friends. But we have to remember to be kind to them. We have to remember to appreciate the things that are affording us a better life, or that are making our lives more convenient, that are showing beauty or providing use for us. So I think that's how I would want to describe and point out to my future grandchildren if the bridge were still there.
Right. So when you heard that this bridge was maybe at the end of its service, what were you imagining was going to be taking place?
Well, the bridge had outlasted its predicted lifespan. And originally when it was built, they thought that it would last about 50 years, and it lasted over 70 years. So you can imagine that by the time it reached the end of its life, it was looking pretty old and pretty tired, which added to, even as an adult, it kind of added to my imagination, where I thought, wow, this bridge has served its purpose for so long. And now here it is at the end of its life, and it never had a break. It never had a break. And so even though it was a physical structure, part of my imagination was brought back to life as a young child. And I thought, it never got its break. It worked so hard for so long, and it never got its break. So when I heard that it was coming down, what they did actually was they built a new bridge right alongside it, because they had to build a new bridge before they tore the original one down, because otherwise how could people get across? So they built the new one, and then they announced that they were going to be taking down the old bridge. And this was pretty big news in the area where I live, because that was a piece of history. And many people loved the Tappan Zee Bridge. I mean, it was a very important, special, beautiful bridge. So it was all over the news, and they had helicopters, and they had newscasters, and everyone was there. Well, I couldn't miss it. It was history that was happening. And as strange as it may sound, but again, I wrote a children's book, I thought, I have to say goodbye to my old friend. So I went and I drove to the banks of Nyack, and I lined up with all the other people who were there to watch the bridge come down. And there was something that was very disturbing to me when I went. And that was, there were parents who allowed their children to stay home from school that day, because this was history that was happening. A very important bridge was coming down. And so they allowed their children to stay home to watch this. And I agree. I thought that was really amazing. And this is not everyone, but in the vicinity where I was very saddened to hear a lot of the kids were missing the importance of the bridge. They missed what it stood for. They missed the history. They weren't told why it was special. And I can understand children getting anxious and wanting it to hurry up, because they were going to blow up the bridge. They were detonating pieces of the bridge. So the children were standing there, and they had to restart the countdown once or twice because of the wind. And the second or third time they said, okay, folks, we're going to begin the countdown. The kids started just chanting, blow it up, blow it up, blow it up. And I was heartbroken. And I thought, they've missed the point, and they've missed what this bridge was all about and what it stood for. And I felt so sad that they in some way were kind of like the busy people just going about and just waiting for the explosion. They missed the big part of it and the big piece, and that it meant something to a lot of people. So obviously they were just children and they didn't know any better. But in that moment, this story that I had in my mind all of these years, in that moment, I made a vow that I was going to write this children's book. And this children's book was going to honor the bridge. It was going to tell its story. And it was going to impart some valuable lessons, like how to be a good friend and how not to overlook the little things, and to make sure that you're looking for the smiles in the world, because sometimes change happens. Bridges break down. Your best friend moves. We lose a family member, but we always have those memories. So the book is all about accepting change, but holding on to the memories. The history will always be there. The bridge is not. And it's also just paying attention to the people around us. When I was older and I would watch the news, I heard about people who had jumped from the bridge. And that's when I realized why the signs were there. And I felt very, very sad. And again, if you were to attribute, if a physical structure could have feelings, which we know that's not the case, but because I created this to be, a bridge that saw things and had visibility, I thought, if a structure could have feelings and could view things, how awful that would be, that this bridge that held so many people up couldn't hold everyone up, because the bridge, like the bridge that carried such a heavy weight, there were people who carried heavy weights and they weren't noticed. Just like sometimes the bridge wasn't noticed by a lot of people until it was time to come down.
Wow, very, very poignant. When you read this story to children, right? When you go into schools or groups and communities, what do you love to ask the kids after you've read the book to them?
I always ask the students to look around the room, and not including people or the teachers or their classmates, can they find a smile? And I am always amazed just by that little prompting at how many arms reach and they shoot up. I see one, I see one, I see one. And all of a sudden, you start to see smiles. And they'll see smiles in the tile. They'll see smiles in the floor, in the grains of the wood. They'll see smiles in like a piece of artwork that they didn't see before. And so I always challenge them after they see it. I'll say to them that if you start your day, and sometimes we have bad days, sometimes things don't go the way we want. If we start our day and we decide that it's going to be a rotten, rotten day and we're going to look for bad things, we're going to find them. But if we challenge ourselves to look for smiles, to look for a friendly face, to look for a friend or to be a friend, we can actually change someone's day. And so I know that I've had parents of students reach out to me and say, oh my goodness, my child came home and they said that they're not going on their phone or their tablet today because the author that came to their school today said, I challenge you not to go on your device today and just look outside and look to see if you can find smiles. And they were shocked that they were actually searching for smiles.
Wonderfully. Like, the idea of that is so fun. Of course, it sends me right back into my memories. I lived near mountains my whole life, and we had a mountain that smiled back. There's just something about a child that you try to look for that relationship, that friendship, and a smile is like the best way. If you can find it within an object, within a landmark, within a mountain, I mean, amazing. Now I'm going to have to go look at the Perrine Bridge to see where that smile is.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go look. There might be something there.
Yeah.
Something that I might have missed. So I'm excited about that opportunity. What a great question to ask kids, because that just puts them in that focus of when whatever we focus in on is what we will find. So if you have asked them a question that purposefully asks and focuses on positive, they will start to find it. Have you received any letters or emails back from those experiences of what kids have shared?
Yes. Yeah. I've actually, I would run over right now. I have a stack full of Some were even before I left the school, because sometimes when I go to schools, I'll do a program or a presentation by grade level. So I'll do kindergarten first and second, and then onward. Sometimes I'll have kindergarten through second grade, and then I'll do the older third through fourth or fifth. Sometimes before I've even left the school, whoever went first, the teacher will come back in and say, I have all of these little, cards and paintings and pictures that the students wanted me to give you. Sometimes I've received them in the mail, the following week. And I'm absolutely, that is what makes my day. Because I feel like, and in honor of the month of April and what it stands for, if I can inspire a child to use their imagination, if I can show a child a safe person who, where you can find a smile in the world, and it won't and doesn't have to translate to something beyond that. And if I can help show students and people how to be good to one another, how to be kind, and to remember to have empathy and awareness and to pay attention to one another, then I've done my job. And I feel, especially in celebration, not in celebration, but in honor of April and what that means, awareness of child sexual abuse, if we don't allow students, children, young people to use their imagination, because their imagination is the bridge, no pun intended, but it's the bridge to hope and healing and believing in goodness, then we've lost a generation of young believers in goodness, believers in a better world. So this is when I receive thank yous and when I receive notes from parents and from students or from teachers, I'm filled again to write my next book. And I have to share this one thing, because now that we're talking about, and you asked that question, it always gets me choked up, but I went to a school recently, and there was, after I gave the presentation, there were a bunch of students who came up and they were like telling me, oh, I love the book and I love your story, and will you come back, and will you they're all so sweet. But this one little girl came up to me and she said, I know you. And I said, really? I said, from today? And she said, no, I know you. You speak my language. And at first I thought she must have, maybe from my last name, thought that I spoke a foreign language similar to hers. And I said, oh, like the language that you speak at home? And she said, no, you speak my language. And I said, what language? And she said, kindness. And I said, I'm so glad. I'm so happy that I found you. And I said, you speak my language. And she hugged me. And I was so touched by that moment. And I felt like, here's a little girl who is out there using her imagination. And she was telling me about things that she sees and the things that she notices. And that my story resonated with her, especially. And she actually was mature enough to translate that to say, I speak the same language. And I thought that was such a beautiful, beautiful comment. And it's something that has really stuck with me.
What a beautiful way to share that idea of kindness, of hope, of light, and of love. I think that's a perfect way to end tonight's discussion. Thank you so much, Shane, for everything that you have shared with us this evening. And if you all would do a great supportive deed for Miss Shane Svorec, would be to go to Amazon, go to her website. You can see things running underneath in the ticker, and go and get this book. She's holding it up there. Let's post the title again. Excuse me. we want her to know that so many of you support her, and this idea of the busy bridge that got its break, it has so many multiple meanings. And like you can see, all teachers out there, raise your hand. Oh yeah, mine's still up. Yep. All teachers out there, invite this idea of imagination, love, and goodness to come into your classroom and to see what happens. Invite Miss Shane to come and speak.
Yes.
See how you can really connect and unite things together, because there is a language of kindness, there is a language of hope, there is a language of light. So again, thank you all for being so supportive this evening. Again, her name is Shane Svorec, and go and see and find all of the things here that she has. Again, she has 2 books, Broken Little Believer and The Busy Bridge That Got Its Break. Did I say that right? I hope
Yes,
so.
you did.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Shane. And thank you for being a part of the Beacon of Light podcast. Again, we will host another author, another children's book for our final week of April next week, which is Miss Kathy Studer. And I'm so excited to have her as a part of the program. So thank you, everyone, for being here with us tonight. Thank you for being a part of our comments, being a part of everything this evening. It's just been a wonderful event. Thank you again, Shane.
Thank you.
We'll see you all soon. Bye-bye, everybody.